Hello everyone, I'm here today to do my August wrap up a little bit earlier than I usually do. I usually wait till the month is over, but I already just know that I'm not going to be finishing up any other books this month, so I thought, why not? I'm going to start with the couple books that I've already done a review on, and I'll put the link for those in the description box below. First one, I don't know if the order or whatever. They're not in order. For Darkness Shows the Stars by Diana Peterfoyn. I have a theme for this month, and it's evident with the books that I reviewed and with the other books that I'll be talking about in a minute. It's expectations that are dashed. I have had too high of expectations, and even though I try not to, none of the books have lived up to them. I did enjoy this book. I had issues with it. It wasn't perfect. I gave it a 4 out of 5. The next book that I reviewed is Serafina by Rachel Hartman. I really love the cover, so I'm kind of close. Zooming in on that for a second. Again, very much the same case as For Darkness Shows the Stars. Really high expectations, unfortunately a little bit too high, and while I did enjoy it, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't quite the like, oh my god, this is my favorite book ever kind of feeling. So again, this is another 4 out of 5. And I only read 10 books this month, which may seem like a lot, but I've been doing at least 12 for the past few months. The past few days, like, I just haven't had time to read, so I took my time deliberately with the last book that I was reading, because I always like to read an even number, so I knew if I finished that too early and if I had enough time to read one other book, it would be an odd number, and I wanted to end on the even number, so I stuck with 10. And I know it sounds ridiculous, so I'm just going to move on before you guys all start laughing at me and my weird quirks. So, the first book that I read was Grave Mercy by Robin Lafevers, or Lafevers, I don't know. This book was another one, very much like the first two I just described. It's a historical fiction / kind of romance fantasy novel set in the late 1400s in this country of Brittany, which is, I guess, is now part of France. I didn't know that it used to be its own little country. And it's about this group of nun assassins. And I'm like, oh my god, that is so cool. I thought it was going to be the best thing ever. And while it was really good, it was not quite the best thing ever. And I gave it a 4 out of 5 as well. It had a romance in it, which was really good. It was not insta-love. And it seemed like it was historically accurate. Again, I'm not an expert on this time period, so I don't know, but whether or not it actually was accurate, it seemed like it was, which that's always a plus for me. Of what makes a historical fiction book work for me is whether or not I actually know if it's accurate, at least if it gives off the accuracy, like, vibe. That sounds weird too, I know. But again, maybe, although it wasn't insta-love, I thought there was kind of too much romance, not quite enough action as I would have liked about, assassin nuns, but I don't know, it was good, but it wasn't, oh my god, blow me away amazing. So yeah, 4 out of 5. The next book I have is The Silent Speaker by Rex Stout. This is a Nero Wolfe mystery romance where some guy is killed and he's about to give a speech, and terrible description of it, I know, but the murder had already happened before the book starts, and like the investigation was already begun, and I couldn't get into it, because like we never actually got to know the victim beforehand, and I found like the side characters in it uninteresting. I mean, Nero Wolfe and Archie Goodwin are all the usual characters are their usual selves, but it was like everybody else in it, I'm like, I don't really care about you. So yeah, I gave this a 2 out of 5. Next I have Hallowed by Cynthia. This is the sequel to Unearthly, which is a paranormal romance book about angels. I read the first one a couple months ago, I want to say April, and I had very low expectations of it, so I was pleasantly surprised, and that one was a 4 out of 5 for me. This is much of the same. It continues Clara's, adventures of, being of angel blood. I don't want to spoil too much of the first book, so I'm not going to say much more than that, because you'd have to read Unearthly first. But again, it's in the same vein. This series is just so weird, like in a good way, because it uses all of the usual YA paranormal romance tropes of, like, you know, the love triangle, the angel, you know, crap, the, you know, like, paranormal person, but everything, it's all subverted and just twisted and turned upside down, that's what makes these books work. It's like, it's very self-aware of these tropes and stereotypes, and it just, yeah, it flips them upside down. And that, otherwise, if it wasn't for that, these would not be anything spectacular. But again, I really enjoyed this book as well. I think I actually kind of liked Unearthly a little bit better, but I still give this one a 4 out of 5. Next book that I have is The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. I previously read Pigs in Heaven by this author when I was in 9th grade. It was actually a summer reading for school, and I really enjoyed that one. And this one is, I think it's considered to be like her masterpiece, apparently. It's a historical fiction set in the late 50s to, like, expanding decades and decades beyond that, about a missionary pastor and his family, his wife and 4 daughters. The dad is really strict and controlling and basically starts to go mad in this, and his daughters and wife basically all have to be submissive to him. And this is told from all of the family's point of view except for the father, Nathan Price, I think. Yeah, they're the Price family. They go to Africa, to, I forget what country, because it's been a couple weeks since I read this, and my mind has just been everywhere. But trying to adapt, they basically had no idea what they were in for this kind of life. The dad is not very good at getting along and fitting in with these people, but the rest of the family does. And then there's also, I think, it was the Congo, I think. Then there's all the political conflict later on, that kind of stuff. I really like the plot of the story and the characters, but it was kind of, the storytelling methods is kind of hard for me to get used to. I like that it was told from all their points of view, but then it would be like they would go back and talk about things that had already happened, you know, from their viewpoint, and I got slightly confused, like, oh, I didn't know that we had already gotten that far. It was hard for me to get used to at first, but I give it a 4 out of 5. It was really good, but again, I think my expectations were just a bit too high for this one as well. The next book that I have is The Mirror Cracked by Agatha Christie. I'm sticking to my promise to myself to only read one of her books a month to stretch out the very few books that I have left of hers that are unread. This is a Miss Marple novel, and it's about a famous actress who, she has a party at her house, and then a woman is poisoned there, and they think that it was meant for the actress, and this woman was killed by mistake, and of course Miss Marple has to solve everything. I really enjoyed this book. I give it a 4 out of 5. I love Miss Marple. She's one of my favorite Agatha Christie characters, and I love all the books that she's in. I haven't, any of, like, the post-war Miss Marple novels, like post-World War II, I haven't been able to connect with them as much as her older ones, and I know the writing, like Agatha Christie, brings up, you know, all the social changes and everything that happened to the country, how things are different and all that. I miss the old school set, you know, 1920s and 30s before all this upheaval after the war. I think I've realized that's why none of the post-World War II books have had quite the wow factor for me that her older ones have. But I did really like this book a lot too. So yeah, it was a 4 out of 5. And the next book I have is Soulless by Gail Carriger. This is actually an adult historical fantasy novel set in Victorian England about a spinster named Alexia Terabati, and she is soulless, where she doesn't have a soul. And this is like an alternative version of Victorian England where there are werewolves and vampires and that kind of thing, but everyone is fully aware of them and they're accepted into society and they have their own regulations and all that kind of stuff. So Alexia not having a soul means that she cannot, like, she balances out these people's powers. Like, if they touch her, they become mortal, because I guess having these supernatural abilities means that these people have too much soul, and Alexia doesn't have one. I don't know. So Alexia accidentally kills a rogue vampire in the beginning of the book, and the government is sending this werewolf named Lord Mackin to investigate like where this vampire came from, and Alexia wants to tag along. It's got paranormal, werewolves, and vampires. It's got a little bit of steampunk in it. It's historical. My expectations were too high for this one as well. The romance in it seemed like it was going to be really charming at first, but then it became kind of why I don't like historical romance novels. Once the smutty scenes got started, I was just like rolling my eyes. It's just not really the kind of thing I want to read about. It was funny, for sure, and I liked Alexia, and I liked Lord Mackin at first, except I was getting really irritated because they call him Lord Ronald, or whatever his first name was, Mackin, Earl of Wolseley. It would be like, no, that's not the correct title. He would be called Ronald, whatever, I don't know if that was his name, Mackin. Lord Wolseley. They would refer to him as Lord Wolseley, not Lord Mackin. So it's something that could easily be looked up and changed. So minor details like that. Like, I'm not a historian, and these are the same titles that are still being used in England today. So really, the author should have no reason to get something that silly wrong. I was also kind of disappointed about, the whole concept of soullessness, Alexia being a preternatural, as they call it, not having a soul. Like, what are the consequences of that? What does she have to live with? Basically, she has no creativity. That's how it affects her. I'm like, okay, that's it. I thought it'd be something more interesting, but apparently not. So yeah, I gave this a 3 out of 5. I was really into it in the beginning, and then my interest just kind of went downhill. So yeah, just a 3. The next book that I have is Artemis Fowl, The Last Guardian. This is the 8th and last book in the Artemis Fowl series. Opal Cowboy is back to get revenge, and they have to try to stop her, and it's got even more deadly consequences than before. I don't want to spoil too much. I gave this one also 3 out of 5. My expectations were way too high for this being the last book in the series. I wanted everything to be wrapped up, all of the, loose ends, all the questions answered. And I was disappointed. It was a good book. I feel like if I were a kid, like in the target audience, I really would have liked it more. But being my age and the expectations that the previous books built up, it didn't live up to those. I was kind of sick of Opal Cowboy as a villain. Some of the character development, things that we were led to believe were happening, I don't want to spoil anything, in the previous books turned out to be nothing came of it. It was quite odd, actually, and I don't know, just a 3 out of 5. It was okay. And the last book, which I actually finished reading like an hour ago, and this is the one that I deliberately took like forever, I don't know, a few days to read, because I already explained the weird way my brain works beforehand. But it is White Cat by Holly Black, and this is the first in the Curse Workers trilogy. It's about this teenage boy named Cassell Sharp, who, I guess to explain it, it's set in like an alternate universe, which seems very much like our own, but with people called workers, who basically they have these supernatural powers where when they touch someone with their bare hands, they can do something. Like, the majority of them are luck workers, or they can change a person's luck or emotions or kill someone, etc. Cassell comes from a long line of workers, but he's not a worker himself. He doesn't have any powers. But 3 years previously, he killed his best friend. I don't know if I thought it was Lila, but it might be Lila. I don't know. I'll say Lila. And he doesn't have any memory of it. He only remembers like standing over her body with bloody hands and being gleeful. So he spent the last few years trying to just seem normal, because his family helped him, or his brothers helped him cover up the crime, and he's trying to live a normal life, and he's really not doing a good job of it. But then he starts having dreams of a white cat that reminds him of Lila, and he thinks that she may still be alive. This book, I gave it a 4 out of 5 because I really ended up enjoying it, but it took a while. The beginning, the world, I didn't realize, it took me a while to realize, like, okay, this is sort of an alternate universe where people have these powers. At first, it seemed like a normal place, and I'm like, it didn't really explain what exactly workers were in the beginning, and it took me a while to kind of figure out everything, get my bearings, so to speak, and become immersed in the story, because I was still confused. Once I did, I started to enjoy it more, though was disappointed about the beginning, really. So, yeah, so 4 out of 5. Again, I think my expectations were too high for this one as well, because I feel like everybody loves this book, so I was expecting to love it, and instead I just liked it. I feel like I was just really kind of no energy in doing this review today. These past few days have just not been great days for me, and this month has just been a lackluster month for a book. There was nothing, no 5-star books for me, nothing that I outright loved, like, oh my god, this is amazing. So hopefully September will be better in that regard. I will see you guys in my next video.